Hi, John Traver here at Traver Connect. Thanks for joining us on our Service BDC video today. If you've already partnered with us, we appreciate your partnership over these past years. If you're new to us, we look forward to getting to hear your story and come alongside you relative to Service BDCs. When you hear the term Service BDC, the first word for me that comes to mind is calls. That's what really a Service BDC is going to be built around, both inbound and outbound calls. Those calls are going to load your shop, it's going to drive your RO count, and ultimately, it's going to tee up your next retail unit. One reason the Service BDC is so successful today, so important today, is it has a massive amount of opportunity in the form of those incoming calls. The cell phone changed everything. It's increased the amount of calls to dealerships, and as a result, we have to have a team of people centralized to take those calls. It's always been busy in service, but today when you ask dealers, they tell you they need help.
With only 3 service writers, it's virtually impossible for my service writers to load the shop effectively and efficiently in order to keep my shop full.
The second thing I'd be thinking about if I were you is, what do my calls sound like? What is our statement of work in those calls? Are we asking for email, address, phone number? Do we use a time and mileage approach to make sure we're pre-selling to any additional needs, or are we just order taking and then trying to take care of the customer when they get there and tell them we need their car all day? So what you want to do is establish a clear roadmap for how your calls are going to be handled. We'll help you do that, whether it's virtually here through our BDC or we do it with your team at your dealership. So perhaps you're like some dealers, when they hear us talk about centralizing the calls here in Dallas, Texas, they wonder what that call might sound like.
One thing I like about Traver is that my customers feel as though they're dealing with someone within my own store. I've had several customers come to my store and ask to speak to Chelsea when my people that realize Chelsea doesn't work there, she actually works in the call center in Dallas.
I have you scheduled for the recall. Was there anything else?
Let me tell you, you're like the most professional person I've ever spoken to, I think.
My pleasure.
Good job.
Thank you.
No, I'm serious. I'm being completely serious. No, we don't need anything else. That was great.
You have a wonderful day.
Okay, you're doing a great job. You sound good on the phone. So
Oh,
when I see Herb, I'll tell him he's a great person on the phone.
We're built for Service BDCs, 60,000 square feet of workstations and personnel trained to take inbound calls. There's a handful of ways we can help you. We can help you with a virtual Service BDC where we take your calls. We can help you with outbound campaigns, filling in those open spots in your schedule, turnkey, not just getting the customer to call, but actually taking the call and loading it in your scheduler. 3, training for your business development manager, for your business development rep. How do they take these calls? We'll bring them into our customer experience center if they're a BDM, or we'll provide online training for those BDRs. Leadership education for you. You're wondering, what are my KPIs? What should my staffing plan be? We can walk you through this in less than a day. And then tools, everything from texting, mobile payments, even in-dealership software to help your BDRs. So hopefully you see we're built for Service BDCs. This is what we do, not what we talk about, and we hope to be talking to you soon.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable, everyone. I'm Gene Girdley and our host, Ted Ings. And Ted, we go from one industry expert to another. We just came off Glenn Pash and then Rick Reichardt, and now another industry leader, Liza Borges. Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thanks so much, Gina. I'm excited to be here. This is always a highlight.
Liza, you are a great highlight of our events, and we're so fortunate, everyone, to have with us today Liza Borges, who is the president and CEO of Carter Meyers Automotive in Virginia. And Liza is a great friend of our events, the Fixed Ops Roundtable, and has been part of the growth over the past year. And Liza, you and I have seen a lot in this past year, haven't we?
We have. I think having your roundtable every quarter or so has really helped us put important issues on the table as we've evolved and adjusted through the year that was 2020. And now we're ready to launch, I think, what's going to be a really fantastic year for the auto industry in 2021.
I agree. And I like that word evolve. CMA has, speaking of longevity, your company's been in business a long time. And there's, that doesn't happen by accident. What do you attribute some of that success to?
Well, as you mentioned, we've been here a long time, 97 years, I think, officially. I am the fourth generation of our family, just honored and humbled to have the opportunity to lead this organization. All three before me were all named Carter Meyers, hence the name of our company, Carter Meyers Automotive. And some people can't always connect those dots, but it was my great grandfather who started our company in 1924. We were actually a sawmill company originally and started producing our own trucks in the back of the I can't call it a dealership at that point, the back of the manufacturing company. They were called the Samson truck. And so eventually we evolved into being a Ford dealer, and now here we are today. But I think there's so many components that go into why we are still in business after 97 years. And a couple of the things that I'll touch on is that I think we want to dive into is around the values of the company. Mm-hmm. And every month when we talk to our new hires in our orientation, I always have my dad come in for the first hour and a half and share some of our history. And we talk about why we think we're still in existence after 97 years. And having a strong foundation of values certainly is the start. But there were a couple other key things. One, as our industry has evolved and over 4 generations, we have only had one family member each generation who has been involved in the company and led the company. And you might say, well, why does that matter? Well, when you look at family businesses, especially in the auto industry, oftentimes when you have brothers, sisters, cousins, nieces, nephews, a lot of people in the business, it tends to become a family business instead of a business run by a family member. And you have too many people all with different opinions who are trying to live off the business versus running it like a corporation. So we're a C Corp. We've always had one member of the family lead with nobody else involved. And I think that's kept us very focused on the mission of our company. 2 other things I'm going to mention that I think are really important. There are a lot of people out there who have dreamed of owning a dealership. They're in the auto industry and they want to ultimately go out and own their own store. Well, that's just not a viable option in today's world. A single point dealership is simply not going to exist in the future. And so as we have grown over the years, we have had a lot of general managers as partners. People who have had the dream of owning their own dealership are able to partner with CMA. They're able to grow a dealership, but also have the opportunity to share the responsibility, to share some of the efficiencies and costs across multiple dealerships. And so we've been able to recruit and bring in, I think, top leaders in a way that some other dealership groups or single point stores haven't been able to survive. And then the final thing is our ESOP. And we can talk about that more, but having everybody in our company be an owner, it changes the mindset. It creates longevity and loyalty and engagement that I think has helped us not just survive, but thrive for 97 years.
Let me come back to that. When did your company originally put that in place?
So we started profit sharing back in 1941, which was unheard of in the auto industry at that time. We formalized it into an employee stock ownership plan in 1979. And so we started sharing profits through the ESOP back then, but it really wasn't until about 2008 when we were trying to figure out how to get through these tough times. And I had been back with the company about 5 years at that point. And I remember talking to my dad one day and I said, Dad, we've got this awesome thing in our ESOP, millions of dollars for our associates, but we have never really talked about it with our team in a way that's meaningful. And so one of our general managers came up with the tagline that year, owners just do more. And so we really started maximizing that owner mentality, and that every single one of us here owns a part of this company. They own 26%. And to get through the tough times of 2008 and 2009, we needed every associate in our company acting like an owner, making good decisions on how do we save money, how do we cut costs, how do we reach our customers in new ways. So I think it's been absolutely critical, especially in the down times. You've really
highlighted some of those owners as well. I've noticed recently in some of the posts that your company has done online. So you've got a great success story. And let's talk a little bit about your people, because I don't know whether you realize this or not only have you elevated CMA's game in terms of your focus on people and hiring and retaining the right people, you've elevated our game here at the Fixed Ops Roundtable by helping us originally recognize some issues and then getting us on the right path to maybe correct them and to help others correct them in the industry. So your focus on people is just second to none.
Well, thank you. It's our number one core value, putting people first, and everything else happens after that.
And also the processes that your company has employed, and you continue to elevate those as well. Let's talk a little bit about how important that is to the success of the company.
Well, I'm going to tie the people and process together, because when we talk about longevity and we talk about customer retention and we say what's going to create an environment where we're going to be here another 97 years, you can have all the best processes in place, but if you don't have leaders who are holding your team accountable to using the processes, if you don't have leaders who are constantly challenging the processes and say, okay, this may have worked for us 5 years ago, but is this the way that we should be doing business today? Is this the way we want to be doing business 5 years from now? If you're not doing that and you're sticking with the same processes that worked 5-10 years ago, you're not going to be around for our future. So processes are critical, but really it comes down to accountability, and it comes down to evaluation as to whether that's the process that's most powerful today and for tomorrow.
Some of those changes that have come about in the last 5 years, specifically in the last 1 year, have to do with technology and a lot of the things that we've employed in our industry, where people are interacting now with a dealership through a device, or at least getting the process started, perhaps doing the whole process online. How do you balance that with the focus that you have on people?
And such a great question, Ted, because we're all talking about the disruptors out there, and we're talking about Carvanas and Vroom and Tesla and some of these others that certainly have different levels of technology that is integrated in their process compared to a small single point dealer or even larger dealer groups. And as we go forward, I believe that the dealer groups who can find a way to have just as strong a technology, we need to have a customer be able to go on our website, purchase a vehicle all the way through if they choose to, deliver it to their home, have everything electronically signed just as if they were buying a house, which is crazy that they can do it and we can't always do it. But we also have to wrap that technology and that process with a person and with a relationship. That's how we're going to keep the disruptors from taking over our business or being more successful in our business. But the technology is important, and we need to be, I wouldn't say banding together as dealers, but we've got to find a way to use our volume as franchise new car dealers to bring all of the different vendors that we have out there who all have a piece of this pie, and to find a better way to integrate them so that we have a seamless and efficient process. And I got to tell you, we have to collaborate with our manufacturers on this. We had a great conversation in another forum a few days ago about the fact that, and I'll use Tesla as the example, they don't have separate dealers and manufacturers. And there's a lot of benefit for us to have that separation. But the one downside is that we have lots of different manufacturers who all want us to use different vendors and different pieces of technology. And that right now we haven't had a great solution to integrate them so they're seamless for our customer. It is absolutely a focus for 2021.
How about your company's focus on training? How important is that, especially in the past year with what our businesses have experienced?
Ted, training seems to be the first thing that goes out the window or off the budget when times get a little bit tight, or when people have some fear or anxiety about the future. At CMA, we have the opposite. When times are tough, we need to go all in on training. And when I think it was about March 18th in 2020, when we recognized that we were in for something crazy, the first thing we said was, okay, what training do our people need? What training do our leaders need in order to be able to get through this and thrive through it? And so, yes, in fact, this year we are bringing all of our different training initiatives together into the CMA Academy. And I found that we had gone in so many different directions for training last year, all fantastic, but we needed a more consolidated effort so that all 700 associates had one portal to go to and can find all the different opportunities they have to train with our company. So we have everything that includes from the normal sales process training to leadership training to bringing in once a month. This year, we're having a guest speaker from different industries come in and talk to us about different subjects that would be relative to how we can improve in automotive.
Very, very, very strong. What's your advice to dealers moving forward in 2021? We've been through a whole lot. And again, speaking to your company's longevity, 90 plus years in the business, what should we be preparing for in 2021? What are the things that you're looking at?
You know, we have got so many positive things happening in 2021, from a very strong stock market, even with crazy things that happened last week for certain companies, strong stock market. We've got very low interest rates. We actually have new car inventories that are in line. They're not, we don't have too many cars on our lots. I think the incentives are stacked right with the inventory. We have strong used car values, which, while that may be tough from a sourcing perspective, it's great for getting consumers in and being able to put them into a new car. We look out there and I think there's very positive signs for what is going to add to consumer confidence and consumer interest in 2021. So we'll start with that. I think we've got a good economy. We've got a lot of opportunities to bring new employees into automotive, because not every industry is booming right now. And not every industry is looking as positively towards 2021. So the automotive industry right now has the best opportunity to bring in some new faces, some new ideas, and some new lenses into our industry. I believe I just saw this morning that the new incoming NADA chairman is going to prioritize programs around diversity in automotive. And I think that is critical, and I can't wait to be a part of it. So that's going to be, I think, a top priority for all of us to continue to grow our industry in 2021.
And that's certainly one of the areas that you've helped us grow as well, with that focus and recognizing that. Let's talk about the importance of fixed ops in the future for dealerships, because historically it's been the back of the store, service and parts, body shop, doesn't get a lot of love, and a lot of that changed now. And what should we be preparing for, and how should we be ramping up in terms of looking towards the future in terms of fixed ops?
Well, Ted, it has never been in the back of my mind. Fixed ops is absolutely critical in our company. And when I look at the leaders in our company, when I look at those who have made a huge difference in CMA for 97 years, many of them are our service directors, parts managers. We look at the net profits from different departments, and oftentimes our parts departments are the leaders in net profit for the year. So for us, it has always been a focus. When we think to the future, and we don't know what 10, 20 years from now is going to look like, whether autonomous vehicles end up moving forward in a way that works, whether subscription vehicles ever end up being a true part of our solution. I don't know, maybe we'll have a flying car in 20 years. I don't know. But what I do know is that there's always going to be repair and maintenance. There are a lot of dealers who are uncomfortable with the fact that alternative fuel vehicles might change the way that we service. There is some potential fear about manufacturers being able to connect directly to cars through the cloud. But brakes, tires, maintenance items, those things are going to stay until these cars are flying. So I think that as a dealer, as a group of dealers, we've got to challenge ourselves to say, okay, where are we going to continue to need to have that relationship with consumers, and how can we add to it? What are going to be the pieces of the puzzle that maybe we're not thinking about right now that we could incorporate into our fixed operations? So if we think of ourselves in the future as a transportation hub, what are all the different things that our consumers might need around the area of transportation? Different than what we're looking at right now. Fixed ops is going to be a really important part. It just might look a little different, but we're going to evolve. Auto dealers always do.
Yeah, we're very much able to adapt, and we've really proven that in the last year as well. One last question, Liza. How does all this shape up for retaining your business, customer retention? Obviously, that's a priority. But with all that's happening, and now the technology and the changes, and as you mentioned, the importance of fixed ops, how does that fare for retaining our business, and anything that you can recommend that dealers do in 2021?
So when I think about customer retention, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the first thing that you have to have is you have to have engaged, excited, and really focused associates who want to be not only in your company, but want to help come up with new ideas in your company, because that's what's going to keep customers loyal back to CMA or to any other dealer group. And then I'll tell you, we always say, well, it's the little things. But I'll tell you, it's the big things and it's the little things. The big things sound like they're the easy ones. It starts with, you got to have a product that people want. You have to have processes that we hold accountable to, the things you just asked me about. You got to have marketing in a way that people can find you. You've got to have a great digital showroom. So the big things are important. But the little things, we have to make sure that we're highlighting the way that we do business that's different than these so-called disruptors. I'm going to give you two quick stories, Ted. First, Christmas Day, we had a customer in one of our markets who had an emergency situation. Her car broke down. One of our general managers met the customer at the dealership on Christmas Day to put them in a loaner so she could go pick up her mom. Another situation, just in the last 2 weeks, we delivered 3 cars down to Georgia. That's 4 states away from us. They didn't buy cars from us because our website was the best or our pricing was the most competitive. But when they reached out to us using the big things, we had the product, we had the process, we had the website, we had the marketing. But then our sales associate at the Honda store created a relationship using technology, made this customer laugh, had them just loving our dealership. Next thing we know, we delivered the first car to that customer. Their next door neighbor calls us the next day. hears the story, buys a car from us. We deliver another Honda down to Georgia. The next neighbor calls us. Within 2 weeks, we had delivered 3 cars down to Georgia, and it was not the technology and it was not the pricing. And the last little thing I'm going to tell you, because this just happened yesterday. We're sitting here in a snowstorm, and I get a message from a customer, and it said, and this is a customer I only know through the dealership. There's no other relationship. She said, Liza, it's an emergency. Please call me. This older couple, they've bought 4 cars from us. She was in the emergency room, broke her leg shoveling snow. Both of their vehicles are sedans with no all-wheel drive. Her husband was at home, and he said, Liza, the ambulance took her to the hospital. They put her in a cast, but now I can't get her home. I don't feel comfortable going on the roads. Is there any way that you could go pick her up? I drove down to the hospital, picked her up from the emergency room, took her home, and helped her get into their house. I guarantee you that no technology is going to do that. Carvana's not going to be able to do that. Vroom's not going to be able to do that. And Tesla not having a local dealer is not going to do that. So let's find a way in 2021 to use the big things together with the little things and really make a difference in this world and be the place where every consumer wants to keep all their automotive needs.
Liza, great examples of things that only a focused dealer can do. One focused on retaining their business, and fantastic. My hat's off to you. Great work this past year and coming up and in all the years. So Liza Borges, everybody, from Carter Meyers Automotive, here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thanks so much, Ted.
Thank you, Liza. And Ted, we're going to a break right now, but when we come back, Ali Rita, Bob Tasca, and of course, Jay Leno will join us here on Rev It Up at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Well, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable, and we are grateful and honored to have with us today Ali Rita, who is the #1 automotive salesperson in the world, who hails from Les Stanford Chevrolet in Dearborn, Michigan. Ali, welcome to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ted, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, as I said, a great honor. Long time coming. A lot of people said, Ted, this is a Fixed Ops audience, and what could we possibly learn about selling it? You know what? Ali, you are one of the very greats in our industry, and you've had an amazing rise to the top over these past number of years. And I just wanted to spend a little time and congratulate you, of course, on your success and talk a little bit about how you've done it and, what are some of the processes that you've got for yourself in place. So tell us a little bit about your background. You haven't been in automotive, all your life. I think just the past 20 years or so. Did you do something prior to this?
Yeah. I started out with working at a warehouse, right? I worked right out of high school. I got a co-op job. I was going to high school half the day, and then I had a job the second part of the day as a senior. So I worked at this industrial company where, it was like industrial belts and sprockets, and, I was doing some warehouse work. And, I worked my way up in that company for 10 years. I worked there 10 years, and it was 2 brothers that owned it. It was a smaller operation. So after about 10 years, I kind of worked my way up to third in line after the 2 brothers that owned it. And, I was getting ready to get engaged and, kind of starting my life out. And, I said I needed something more. I knew the next 5 years were going to look exactly the same as where I was at. And I was doing pretty decent. It wasn't, a bad job. I was doing well. But I knew that, there was limits to where I was going to be able to take that job. And, I needed something that had no limits. I knew that there was more, and I knew my potential was more. And by my last couple of years there, I was doing some internal sales and, some external sales. So I got the sales experience under my belt, which I fell in love with. And, a friend of mine was working at a dealership, and he was getting ready to leave that dealership. And I was talking to him, and he's like, he's working at Chevy, and he says, I'm going to go sell Jaguars. And talking to him, I'm like, well, how do you like it? And he tells me he loves it and sells me on, how awesome it is and tells me how much money he's making. And I'm like, wow, this guy just pretty much doubled my salary. Right. And I says, I got to give this a try. And I told him, do you mind if I go to the dealership you're leaving at and talk to the manager there? And he goes, no, not at all. So he calls him up and sets me up an interview. And I go in there and I talk to him, and, pretty much I walk in the dealership. And at that time before that, I was also thinking of getting into real estate. So I was on the fence of which way I wanted to go because that was my other option. So, after talking to that manager for, good, maybe 30 minutes or so, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And he pretty much kind of, sold me on what the potential could be. And what, the energy felt good and it just felt right for me. So I accepted the job. It was kind of difficult. I was pretty comfortable 10 years with the same place and they were family to me. So it was a tough breakup, because you built that family with them. And it was a tough move, but I'm glad I made it, obviously, here.
Your story is not uncommon because so many of us who got into the business, didn't have prior automotive backgrounds and we didn't have a lot of knowledge about, the vehicles and so on. And we all took a chance to get in. And that's also on the service side and on the parts side as well. People have started their career. And if you take a moment and look around, look at all the opportunities that automotive retail affords us. And there's so much to learn because we've got sales, we've got leadership, we've got management, we've got service, parts, logistics, finance, marketing. I mean, it's all there. It's all wrapped up into one thing. And what a great education once you get in and once you get hooked.
Oh, absolutely. Every department is very important. I mean, we have in our dealership, our general manager now who started as a porter at that dealership. So, I mean, you think about it, he started to clean cars and now he's the GM. I mean, think about the opportunity in what was given to him as a young man. So, there's success stories across the country like that. And, now I got, I hired my nephew to kind of be my young legs. He's an 18-year-old kid. So I brought him on to my career now where I needed somebody just to kind of move cars and just a personal porter. And I'm doing just that. I put him in at porter first. I put him in service second. I brought him over to work with me. So I want him to go through every single department to understand, the business inside and out so he can kind of, get a feel of every department and to understand, that person's job. Because as a dealership, we got to understand that, it's a team effort. Everybody's on the same team. So if you understand that other person's position, I think you become a little bit more well-rounded. And that's what I'm trying to do with him now.
That's very smart. You sound like a dealer already. And,
yeah.
and maybe
yeah,
that's your future.
As we get through this conversation, you'll probably realize that a lot of the stuff that I do is almost building a dealership from the ground up inside of another dealership. It's pretty cool, the process and the way it's become.
Now at Les Stanford Chevrolet, there's other salespeople on the floor, obviously. Tell us a little bit about that because you're actually a dealership within the dealership.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. So, it definitely starts with the right owners. My success is a big part of what the dealership has allowed me to do and allowed me to grow and understood that we became a partner. I became a partner with them and you have to have the right ownership. You have to have right management in order to do that, because believe me, if that wasn't the right situation and everything wasn't in place, then I definitely know for a fact I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So that partnership is ideal for my success. And, what we've done is we have built a business inside of a business, a dealership inside of a dealership. I mean, that's exactly what we've done. And, it took time. It takes patience. And, once they understood my vision and we knew we shared the same outcome and the same goals, then we put a plan in place to kind of get us to where we're at. And, that's where I'm at. And I'm still growing, Ted. I mean, we're still growing. I mean, we have a lot more room to grow.
Ollie, you started in the car business then, if I'm correct, around 2001. Would that be before or after 9/11 or about that time?
Wow. I was in June of 2001 is when I started. And then, 9/11, of course, a few months after that. But yeah, that was a pretty difficult time for everybody. I've been through, 20 years in the business. You go through some different times and eras that, kind of get you thinking and shape you into the person you are. But it was definitely challenging at that time.
Did you have any mentors early on? People who took you under their wing, or how did you learn? How'd you learn?
Yeah, this is so important, Ted, to my success. I mean, that's such a great question because, when I first started, I'm going to go back to, I was supposed to start on a Monday and I knew dealerships were open late on Thursday till 9 p.m. So I was starting that following Monday. So I called my manager at the time, Bobby Cap, And I said, hey, you mind if I come in on your late night after I get off of work and just hang out and just kind of observe what's going on? Because I had no idea what to expect, right? I mean, I've never sold a car before. I've never been in a dealership like that. So I go in on a Thursday and I'm just standing around. I'm just watching everything going on. And, you know, when you watch from afar, there's a lot of things going on. I mean, there's just, this machine is just rolling and you're just looking at it, trying to catch up, and it moves pretty fast if you don't understand what's happening. So I'm standing there and the guy comes up to me and says, do you work here? And I says, well, yeah, I'm going to start on Monday, but I'm in training right now. He goes, well, I want to buy a car from you. And just like that. And I says, okay. I says, let me just grab my manager. And I go to Bobby Kemp at the time, and this is why it's important. And I said, hey, this guy wants to buy a car. He says he wants to buy it from me. I said, what should I do? And he goes, word for word. He goes, well, find out what he wants. And that phrase stuck with me my entire life. Find out what he wants is probably the most important part of our business, is just to understand what the consumer is looking for, understand their needs and their wants. And once you get those answers, everything else becomes very easy. So I go back to the guy and I asked him, I says, okay, sir, you know, what are you looking for? You know, just tell me what you're looking for. And I sit down with him and he gives me all the stuff and he pulls out this newspaper, and, you know, that's confusing. He's like, well, I want this geoprism you have in the paper. And I says, okay. I says, you know, so I go back and forth with Bobby, and sure enough, the guy buys the car. And, you know, I'm like, I'm not even on the books yet. Right. So, and Bobby's like, well, I'm going to pay you for that car since you sold it. And that's why it's so important to have the right managers in place and the right, you know, figures in your life. And I was very, very blessed to work with a guy named Jerry Turfey, who became my mentor, who was into relationship selling, who was a guy that I kind of looked up to. And I had no idea what relationship selling meant. All I knew is this guy would sit at his office. He'd just laugh and joke with everybody, and people just kept coming in to see him. Never on the lot, never took phone ups. You know, this was 100% relationship. And I'm, as a young man, to see that and to look back and say, you know, man, I inspired to be like that. That's where I want to take my business. And having the ability to see that physically, to understand what it took to get there was a huge part of my success, because I was able to map it out. I says, okay, well, I got to put my head down running now. But in the future, this is where I want to get to. And you got to have a plan. As a salesperson, you can't just show up to work with no plan. As a dealership, you can't build a dealership with no plan. So, you know, my plan was to kind of get myself out there and build my business just like Jerry did. And because I was able to see it, had the right managers again, you know, was able to kind of get to that plan that I wanted.
Now, you made a change about 8 or 9 years in, because the dealership you were at was closing, and then you made the transition to Les Stanford. What was that like? Were you able to take your bank of business with you? How'd that work?
Yeah, so, you know, that was very difficult. If everybody remembers, you know, 2007, 2008, we had the depression, we had recession, we had everything going on, and a lot of people were bailing out of the business, Ted. A lot of people were just leaving. There, you know, a lot of my fellow coworkers at that dealership left, and, you know, we were a wind down dealer. So we found out sometime in 2009 or 2010 that we were going to wind down that year. And, you know, I was not sure that I wanted to stay either, because there was a lot of confusion in the industry. You know, banks weren't giving out money, manufacturers weren't making cars. I mean, there was a lot of uncertainty. So, you know, at the time, you know, I thought, okay, well, either I'm going to, you know, try to get another job. And Les Stanford, the manager at Les Stanford, Scott Montgomery, at the time, you know, prior to that was always kind of trying to get me to come over to his dealer. You know, he was always like, hey, you got to come over here, you know, to Les Stanford. And I was pretty loyal to where I was. I was at Bill Wing Chevrolet at the time.
Oh, sure.
And I was just, you know, I was loyal. I says, no, I don't want to, you know, I'm happy here. I was working with Jerry, and I loved working with him at the time. And then, you know, hey, fate had it that, you know, it closed. So, you know, I again went back in and I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go into Les Stanford, but I'm gonna do things a little bit differently this time, knowing the knowledge that I knew and having to start over. Really, I stayed with Chevy. I had other opportunities. I had an owner of a Ford dealership literally come in and sit across from me in my office and say that, you know, please just let me know what you want and let's put this together. And that was at a Ford store. And mind you, I live in Dearborn, the hometown of Henry Ford, and there's like 5 or 6 Ford dealerships around me. So, I mean, the plants are around me. I mean, it made a lot of sense. So I gave that some thought. And then I said, no, my heart was with Chevy. That's where I started. And I didn't want to jump ship, and I didn't want to, I wanted to keep my client base. So, I went into Les Stanford in June of 2010. So that put me, I said, I'm just going to go in with my customer base and just attack it that way, and worked out pretty good.
I remember I was at the NADA. I was speaking at the NADA in New Orleans in 2009 during the winter, and I was on the treadmill in the gym getting ready that morning because I was going to speak later in the day. And on the next treadmill was Rick Wagner from General Motors. He was very tall. I remember that at the time. And I couldn't believe that a couple days later, he got fired and he lost his job. And that's at a time when all this this all was happening, right? All these dealers were, points were changing, points were closing, and so on. And it was a great upheaval in the automotive business. And so you landed on your feet and you went to Les Stanford. And within a short amount of time, you were really on a meteoric rise to the top.
Yeah. And you think about it from 2010 on to even to today, 10 years, to build a business is not that much time. But again, the plan started in 2001. And I stuck with it. But, starting over at Les Stanford, I knew I'd had to do things a little bit differently to kind of push things forward. And I wasn't going to wait for business to come anymore. I said that I'm going to go after it. I'm going to go out and get it. I'm going to generate it. And, because we're always taught in the business, just go get another one, right? I mean, the manager's like, well, go get another one. We'll go get another one. Well, what if another one didn't show up? Because it didn't for a while. For a while, when I was winding down at Bill Wink, there was no inventory. There was no customers. And I'm like, I don't want to go through this again. I said, this is a very difficult way of doing business. So I said that I have to create. I figured I have to get out there and create. And I went back to what Jerry was doing and how did he create business? Were people just coming in to see him? And that's where I wanted to attack things a little bit differently. And, so I did in 2010 when I kind of negotiated going to Les Stanford. I said, I want to be able to advertise. I want to be able to get myself out there. I need you guys to support. And, they were all for it. So they went in and, the GM at the time, and Scott Montgomery, the manager, we had a meeting and they said, well, we're hoping that you can do 25 a month, and that's what we're projecting you to do. And that's serious, right? I'm in the meeting and I look at both of them and he goes, you think you're going to be able to do 25 consecutively? And I says, I tell you what, if I'm going to do 25 a month, I'm probably going to quit. And then he looked over at Scott Montgomery and he said, we better order more cars. So that was just fantastic, right? And they remind me of that all the time. But how is that serious? I'm like, if I'm only going to come back here and start doing 25, I said, that's not going to be enough. I mean, we got to get something a little better. And sure enough, I was there. I started in the middle of June. That was like June 16. And so that month I end up with like 20 some units for that month for those 2 weeks. And I led the board at the dealership and they were just like blown away, right? I'm only there 2 weeks. And then I've never looked back since. I mean, I've been just on a roll since, and, but just kind of staying focused and following that plan.
What kind of stuff do you do and have you done to keep your return business, to keep it coming back? Because obviously that's got to be a huge part, is the repeat and the referral business. What are the actions that you take to ensure that you got that continued relationship and, keep that flow of business coming in the door?
I mean, repeat and referrals are fantastic, right? I mean, it all starts with customer experience. What kind of experience are you giving a customer? How are you treating a customer when they walk in? I always think back of how do I want to be treated when I go somewhere? And if it's not, 100%, then, I'm not going to be happy. So, you got to give that customer that experience. You got to give them your attention. They got to know that you care. That's probably the biggest deal that I've found over the years is if they feel that you care. And, I've kind of adopted this whole, sales advisor, right? I become an advisor, not a salesperson. So I'm not really selling them on anything. I could be advising them on what to do. I could actually advise them not to buy a car, which happens all the time, or not to buy the wrong car. So there's a lot of those times where, I've just taken over where I became the advisor. That's an experience that a customer will never forget. As far as like repeats and referrals, that's great, but there's something a lot bigger than that people are missing the boat on. So repeats and referrals, you might love your experience and you send me 1 or 2 customers a year, but how far is that going to get me? So I said that there's got to be something more. And that's when I started hitting community. That's when I said, my backyard is huge. I mean, I got, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in my backyard. All I need to do is reach out to them. That's where the difference came in. The difference came in not just repeats and referrals, which are great, and you need them. But when you start talking about, catering to 100,000 people in your backyard, that's where the difference, that's where the steady flow comes in. That's what Jerry was doing. That's what I understood that I needed to get to. And when I started hitting community, that's where things started changing rapidly, extremely quick.
So you had your sights set a lot higher than those 25 units a month. When was the first time when did you hit like 100 units a month? When did that happen? So I mean, you can't go from 25 to 100. You can't see 100, right? So you can't see that. So I come in, I was very blessed again. I call it the car gods had sent me a trainer, that I had spoken to that came into the dealership and did a training inside the dealer. And Damien came in and Scott Montgomery had told me, hey, I signed you up. This is another big part of management, right? This is another big part for managers to kind of see, that you can actually direct a salesperson to success just by helping them and supporting them. And that's what happened. Scott comes in, he says, hey, I signed you up for the seminar. And I said, no, boss, I can't. I got 3 deliveries. I don't have time to go to a seminar. I said, I'm not going to that. I said, besides, I'm doing good. I don't need to talk to this trainer. I said, I don't even know who he is. Right. So he's like, and I says, no, I can't go. He says, no, you're going. And he says, you don't have a choice. And I says, gosh darn it. I says, okay. And it was in-house too, right? So I'm thinking I don't have to travel anywhere, and I didn't want to go. So I go to a seminar, it's in-house, and, Damien starts talking about this relationship type selling. And immediately I draw attention to him, and I'm like, everything he's saying, I'm doing. I'm already doing it. And then he tells me about some guy selling 60. He says, this guy over here is selling 60 cars a month. And I'm like, I'm doing like 35 at the time. And I'm thinking, okay, I've hit 40, I've hit 35, I'm doing good. But if there's somebody doing 60, what's happening? And why have I not hit that yet? And, so he got me intrigued on this, and I grabbed him after the seminar, man. I probably talked to him for another 2 hours afterwards. And we became friends after that. And once I believed in what was possible, once I actually believed that somebody out there was doing 60, and even Jerry was doing 40, 45. I mean, never hit to those big numbers. And so I never knew it was possible. So, I was doing, I think maybe like 3 or 4 months after that, after I actually wrote it down, he had me write it down. He said, well, write down your goal, write down what you do. I said, well, somebody's doing 60. I'm doing 60. So I wrote down 60. That was probably the first day I ever believed that I could do that. And Ted, I kid you not, maybe 3 months later, I hit 60. So I called Damien. I'm like, man, you're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe it. I did. I hit 60. And he's like, well, what's your next number? And I'm like, well, I said, no, you didn't hear me. I hit 60. I'm good. I hit 60. Right. And he's like, well, what's your next number? And I said, I'm going to call my mom. She'd be happy for me. I got to call somebody else. And he's like, so he pushes me. And Scott Montgomery at the time also is like, hey, you got more potential. You could do more. You could do more. You could do more. So they're pushing me to these limits. So then I hit 72. And then I call him up, same conversation. Hey, man, you're not going to believe this. The following year, I hit 72. He's like, well, what's your next number? And so forth. And then I hit 90. And then I hit 100. And then, when I hit 90, I said, man, I could do 100. I said, I don't know how, but I can do 100. And somewhere at every level, Ted, at every level, you have to change process. Something has to change, right? I can't do what I'm doing, at 100, what I was doing at 25. I mean, things got to change. So you can't see 100 at 25. So for these young salespeople out there, these young men and women that are trying to get to, 18, trying to get to 25, it's one level. So all I had to do, I had to go from 25 to 35, from 35 to 40, from 40 to 50. And you can see 10 more units. You can see an extra 2 units a month. You can see an extra 4 units a month. But, once you get to that point, and again, having a plan and understanding that you have to stay in your own lane to get there, and you have to have the right supporting staff, the managers, the owners, the dealer. I mean, you need their support. Without their support, I can't emphasize that enough, that you cannot get to where you got to go. And that's when I did 100. I don't remember what year it was. It was probably in 2015, maybe, that I ended up selling 100.
So from the middle of 2010 to 2015, to be able to see that and do that, and then the potential was through the roof after that. All I needed is a couple small tweaks and process to understand that, okay, to maintain, 70 units a month, I needed help. I needed an assistant. I need somebody to at least fill out deal jackets and do the non-productive things that were taking up a lot of time. And, that's what I'm talking about, process changes. You have to understand your business to be able to understand what it takes to grow.
And then you broke the record in what, 2017? You broke the world's record held by Joe Girard since 1973. What was the number, Ollie? What'd you do that year?
Yeah, 1582. 1582 in 2017.
That's insane. That's incredible. And you do it with this attitude of gratitude, I like to say.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it's not a one-man show. I mean, it took a lot of people. It took the right owners. It took the right managers. It took the right dealership. It took the right community to help achieve that. It's not a one-person deal. I mean, it took a lot of effort, a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears. It took a lot of hard work. I mean, let's make no mistake. There is no substitution for work. I mean, it took a lot of work, and it wasn't just 1 year where I popped up in 2017 and broke the record. I mean, it was leading up to that point. So, 2015, I did 1,280. 2016, I did 1,350. So it was getting to that point, and a lot of people just heard about it in 17. So they're like, where'd this guy come from? But I wasn't flaunting on social media. I wasn't out there saying I sold this or I did that. It wasn't relevant to my business. So it didn't matter to me. So I was just, again, put my head down and I was working hard, and it was pretty crazy year too, but it took, you got to think about how important or how big that record really was, set in 1973, ironically, the year I was born. And, to be able to achieve that was pretty remarkable. It was pretty outstanding, but I didn't set out 2017 and say, I'm going to beat, Joe Girard's record. I didn't say that I was, in the beginning of 17 said, this is my year. It was never a thing that I was looking for. I didn't even know that I was going to beat that record until about June of 2017. I said, wow, if I continue this pace, I have a really good shot of doing it. And it wasn't until then that I actually had my sight on it. And for a lot of people that know me, I don't really know where my numbers are throughout the month. I don't keep track. I don't look at the board. A matter of fact, I don't even have them put it on the board. Because it doesn't matter. It wasn't relevant to me to know if I was at 80 or 60 or 90, or it didn't matter. I didn't want the numbers to dictate my next move. I didn't want to say I'm at 99 and I need that one, because then all of a sudden I'm changing my focus on why I'm selling that one. And I didn't want to change my values and what I was doing and why I was doing it. So even to today, I have no idea where I'm at throughout the month. And people ask me, where are you at for the month? I have no idea. I literally have no idea. A couple of days after the month is over, somebody will come and tell me, what we finished with, but it doesn't matter.
What about the relationship between sales and service? We've got a lot of folks watching today who are service managers and service advisors, and they're in a selling capacity too. And they need to find out, like you just said earlier, they need to find out what the customer wants as well.
Oh my God. Oh, I cannot tell you how important that is. If you are not on the same page, you are going to bounce that customer around the dealership until they say that I don't want to come back anymore because of service, or I don't want to come back here again because of sales, or I don't want to come back here because of parts. If you don't understand that this is a team effort, every single person in that dealership is on the same team. We got to remove this competitive nature that, I'm competing against you. Imagine a football team, the same team has that mindset. Imagine their mindset is, well, defense is against offense, so we got to make them look bad. Could you imagine what kind of disaster that would set up? And that's the mentality sometimes that I feel dealerships have. So, if I send a customer to service, I have to understand that I have to be confident enough that I'm okay sending my customer over to see this person in service, because I know that person's going to take care of them as if I was there. As a salesperson, you have to set that up. You have to either take your customer over to service, introduce them to maybe a writer or somebody that you are familiar with using, maybe set up 1 or 2 people in service that you love using more than others, and set it up that way. Find out where your bond is, and that doesn't mean just calling them on the phone and saying. That means maybe physically going over there and getting to know that person. I mean, you're building a relationship with your service personnel too. As a salesperson, I'd like to know who you are. I'd like to know, a little bit more about you. You're not just a name on the phone. You're a person. And I want to understand that person and understand that they know my values and where I'm at with my customer base so they can take care of them. All my customers, Ted, I guess I'll say conditioned them to call me for everything, right? And the reason I do that is they call me if they need an oil change. They call me if they get a flat tire. They call me if they have a billing issue.
Oh.
And it's not because I'm going to go change the oil, or I don't want them to get bounced around the dealership and get discouraged and end up at, just a corner lot oil change place, right? I want to be in charge of that customer throughout the whole process. And that's part of the experience. So they call me and I says, I take the call. Literally, it takes seconds, right? Take the call. Oh, hold on one second. I'm going to connect you with Mike in service. I put him on three-way with Mike in service. Mike, this is Ted. He wants to set up an appointment for an oil change. Do you have time today, or you want to set him up an appointment? Let them do their thing, and then you're out of it. So you literally solved the problem and not had one created, right? Because it would have created an issue, because what would have happened? They get bounced around the dealership, and then they call you frustrated. I've been calling service for 3 hours and I can't get a hold of anybody. And it just builds up, their blood starts boiling, and then they get frustrated. So it's very important, extremely important to have that relationship with service, body shop, parts, sales, building that camaraderie throughout the dealership culture. That's extremely important. That's up to managers to kind of create that, and salespersons themselves that need to make sure that they're setting it up properly.
Now you've become something of a manager yourself this past year, because you are now the mentor, and you've taken on someone to guide, and that person has done pretty well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. I've been working on this project that in my mind for probably 3 years or 4 years now, and I says, I want to be able to take a salesperson and have them follow the path that I did, but kind of guide them through it and see how proven it is, and see how it could work right in real life, and see how it could work today, and not take 20 years or 15 years to develop. So, I went to my owners a couple years ago, and I says, I have this idea that I want to hire a salesperson to work for me. And, they looked at me like I had 3 heads, and they're like, you want to do what? They're like, you don't have time to do that. What do you mean? Well, you want to do that? And I said, well, I want to be able to take a salesperson and send them down this road to success. And, I said, it's not going to cost you guys anything. I says, here's what I'm pitching. And I'm going to have him work for me. He's not going to take a dealer-driven opportunity. He's not going to take a phone up, an internet lead, a walk-in, nothing, zero. He's literally going to be a salesperson that I'm going to build from the ground up. And we're going to do it by networking. We're going to do it by relationship. We're going to do it by community. And, I want to get this. And they're like, well, why don't we just do it? And I said, well, why don't you? And why haven't you? I says, I'm approaching this a little bit differently. So I says, if you give me this opportunity, I'll show you it could work. And they're like, okay, if you think you can do it, go ahead. So it literally took me 2 years to find the right person, because I wasn't going to, maybe a year and a half, I wasn't going to just jump into anybody trying to do this. Plus I didn't have a lot of time, and I didn't want to just do it for the sake of doing it. So I finally find the right person. His name is Carlos, and he was running a pool company. And he was just, I ran into him through a friend, and I mentioned to a small circle of people that I was looking for this person. And I didn't put out an ad. I didn't do any of that. I wanted the universe to send me the right person, and I was actively looking. And one of my friends told me, hey, you got to meet this guy, Carlos. He's great. He's involved in his community, and he does pools and that. So I end up calling the guy and setting up an interview and talking to him, and asked him if he wanted to transition over. And he, sure enough, was tired of doing pools. And he's in his mid-30s, family man. And I says, here's the opportunity that I'm going to present to you. And here's where I believe it can go. And, we put a plan together, and he says, yeah. So I hired him. He's been with me for about a year and a half now. The first 2019, late part of 19. So 2020 was his first year. Now, remember, no ups, no phone ups, no internet leads, started from scratch. We put a plan together.
Green to the car business.
Green, never sold a car, right? I mean, you own pools. So, we get them. So last year, 2020, The first year, he actually hit 40 in a month, all relationship based. He ended up selling 286 units for 2020. And, I'm more proud of that than what I did. I'm more proud of his success, and I'm more proud of being able to take a person that's never sold a car before and build his business up. And now he's steadily a 30-car guy, right? A year into the business, and now he's a 30-car guy. This year, we're projecting, a little over 400 for him. But that's, where somebody can go with the right plan, the right business plan, and the right mindset. And of course, the dealership now, loves their idea. They love their idea of doing this, which is really great. But it worked out pretty good.
You thought outside the box, though, and so many people in our industry do not. And for someone who's had great success to think outside the box is even that much more rare. I'm doing the math here, Ollie, and I'm saying, gee, that's almost 400 more units that you're gonna have on top of the ones that you already have been doing on your own. Finally, last question. What advice would you give to someone today in 2021, new to the car business, thinking of starting a career in automotive retail? If they had a chance to sit down before you, what advice would you give them today?
Wow. I mean, basically what I went with Carlos, what you just said, thinking outside the box, don't wait for business to come. You got to get out there and create it. And what we've done with Carlos is we've created business that didn't exist. We went out to community. We went out and advertised, and I don't mean advertise like, send a $500 check to a charity event. I mean, physically go to the charity event that you advertise at. You need to be proud. The young people coming into the industry, there's no instant gratification. Don't let anybody sell you on that, because it's not instantly gratifying. So if you're going to go out to community, you have to do it for a couple years. You have to get yourself out there, and it takes time. The biggest part of it is believing in what's possible. Don't let our industry say that 30 is the max. Don't let, time, say I only have 8 hours a day of opportunity, and don't let that dictate, what you can do in those 8 hours, because we've already proven what you can do in those 8 hours. So, believe in what's possible, believe in yourself, be aware of what you can achieve, and do the work. I mean, come on, do the work. There is no substitution for work. So it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but it's very rewarding. And there's a lot of signs of that in our industry, Ted. There's a lot of up and comers. There's a lot of superstars that are coming out that are doing things that are much better and faster and more efficient than even what I'm doing. So, educate yourself with those people, get in touch, getting training. How important is training? How important was that in 2010 that I had that training that pushed me, push my career forward? Without training, without coaches, without a manager, being on your side. Like for me to be a manager for Carlos, when we talk about Carlos, I'm his desk-in manager. I'm his finance manager. I'm it. That he answers to me for everything. I pencil his deals. So, as a manager, what I had to learn was patience. I had to learn to be patient with him. I had to learn to understand that, hey, this guy does not know what I know. So I have to be patient and help him understand that. And so, salespeople got to go to managers with the proper information, with, understanding that, hey, this manager needs this information to make an educated decision on what we should do next. So be prepared. Don't go in, rushing every morning as a young salesperson. Can you imagine, Ted, NBA player rushing onto the field, tying his shoe at tip-off and running onto the meeting and running in there and huffing and puffing and trying to get his mic? Those guys are there 2, 3, 4 hours early, getting their mindset ready, getting their body ready. We're the same thing. I mean, we're getting out there. So if you, as a young salesperson, are rushing into work and you're rushing in the meeting and you're rushing, your whole day is rushed, how do you think the customer is going to feel? How do you think your body's going to feel? You want to buy longevity. You want to do things the right way. So get a business plan together, man, follow it, and believe in what's possible. Please believe in what's possible.
Ollie, I'm looking forward to your book because I know it's going to be an instant #1 bestseller for our industry and throughout the world. That's got to be the next thing for you.
I want to keep passing it forward. I want shows like yours and people out there doing these interviews, and it's very important for us to put this stuff out there, because that's how we're going to pass it forward. Ultimately, for all of us, you, myself, and a lot of the guys and gals that are leading the industry, we want to leave this industry better than we found it. And that's the only way we can do it. So we're going to pass it forward. We're going to share, love, and learn from each other. And, who knows what the future brings, but we're definitely making a difference. So thank you for having this. I mean, really, this is so important for people to kind of understand that, believing in what's possible and seeing it. You can't unsee it. I'm right here. You cannot unsee what you've seen. So it's very important.
Ollie Rita, #1 automotive retail salesperson in the world, Les Stanford Chevrolet, here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Ollie, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ted. I appreciate you.
Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable, everyone. I'm Gene Girdley along with Ted Ings, and we have a very special guest right now. Ted, I'm so excited because I've been a fan of Funny Car and the Mellow Yellow Tour and everything else. I'm really excited for Bob Tasca to be here.
Hey,
it's great to be here, guys.
Bob, such an honor to have you here on the show. Everyone, Bob Tasca is the Vice President of the Tasca Automotive Group and CEO of Tasca Racing. Over his career, he has landed 27 semifinal appearances, 14 final round appearances, and won 8 national events and 2 divisional races. Bob currently owns and drives the Motorcraft Quick Lane Nitro Mustang Funny Car. In March of 2007, he broke the world record, recording the quickest pass in alcohol funny car history at 5.451, 263 miles per hour, and he holds one of the quickest passes in fuel funny car at 3.87, 335 miles per hour, and the first Ford driver to break the 3-second barrier. The Tasca family is one of the most recognized and respected automotive dealership families, founded in 1943 by Bob Tasca Sr., known worldwide for his mantra, "You will be satisfied." Today, they operate new vehicle dealerships in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Florida, and Illinois. Bob Tasca, welcome to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ted, that's quite an intro. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be on, and looking forward to sharing some insight on how we operate.
Hey, Bob, you've your family, not only yourself, is legendary in the business and known going way back. I remember when I first broke into the industry in 1981, selling Fords in New Jersey. Our dealer took us on a tour. We went up to Rhode Island to see one of the more progressive dealerships in the country, and it was Tasca Lincoln Mercury. And we spent a day up there and got a chance to see some of the things you were doing, and just amazing at all your organization has accomplished over the years.
Well, thank you very much. That was back in the leasing days. I was just a kid back then, but my grandfather and Eustace Wolfington, they were so passionate on shortening the ownership cycle, and it lives on to this day.
I remember the pre-trade plan at the time is what it was called, and we weren't quite sure what that meant at the time, because we were just getting into the red carpet lease at our dealership, but we figured it out over the next couple of years, and your organization certainly figured out way before anyone, and you led the way for Ford Motor Company for many, many years, as you said, until this day, and for the entire industry, way ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it's a big part of our business right now. I mean, renewals and just how it helps us grow, and it's particularly through challenging times when you have those renewals coming in every month. But yeah, we started back just a few years ago, and it lives on today.
We talk about longevity. I think if we go back, that would be 78 years for the Tasca organization. That really speaks a lot to the credibility. What are some of the ingredients, some of the core values that it takes, to endure for that long in our industry?
Well, I mean, we're just blessed with great people. I mean, like anything else, my grandfather said, the buildings don't fix or sell anything. It's the people that you put inside them, how you motivate them. I think our ultimate responsibilities as dealers is to put our team in a position to win with great training, great resources, equipment, facilities, inventory, advertising, all the things that are imperative to put your team in a position to win. And then they got to go out and win. And I preach that. When I'm not in the dealerships, I'm out there racing. And that's really what it comes down to. You got to put your team in a position to win, and then you got to hold them accountable and let them go out, empower them, give them the freedom to go out there and win the game. And my family over the years have been blessed with just an unbelievable, dedicated group of men and women that come to work every day and get the job done.
That winning theme is really resonates, and it resonates in what you do on the racing side of the business as well. Just amazing, some of the things you've accomplished. And for a car dealer to be doing that, I mean, that really takes and propels you to an entirely new level in our industry.
Well, I think what it does for me, I'm a very competitive guy, as you can imagine. And, in racing or any professional sports, you win and lose. And in my business, I know in 3 seconds or less whether or not, we won or we got sent home, right? So I try to bring that back into the dealership with that kind of a mindset. My team knows whether or not they win or lose each and every day. And it's how we hold them accountable. It's the metrics that we track. I spend a lot of my time when I'm back at the store in fixed ops. And I think it's so important, when the advisors, the technicians, the managers go home, at the end of the day, how did they do? How was the week? We're very good on the sales side, right? We know how many ups we get. We know how many cars we sold, how many we deliver. But some of that gets lost in translations on the fixed ops side. And we have, key metrics that we hold our team accountable to. And they know whether or not they won or lost, every day, every week. And then I do a formal monthly recap with the whole company. And it's about winning. It's about, selling and satisfying, a lot of customers each and every day, week, month, year. And we want to be better today than we were yesterday. And I'm I guess you could say obsessive on beating last year. We want to be better than we were last year in all of our metrics and all of our numbers across our company. And the managers are held accountable. And it kind of, goes downhill. They hold their advisors accountable, but everyone knows where they're at. And to me, that's so important, right? You can't manage what you can't measure. It's like a ship without a compass. So I think that our organization does a really good job of keeping everyone on the same page. I'm very consistent. It's not the program of the month or the week. We're very consistent on what we measure and what we look at. And I'm relentless on holding the team accountable. Each and every month at my level, we do a deep dive with the whole company. And it's one of my favorite meetings of the whole month because you really can see who won and who lost. And that's important to me.
We talked a little bit about sales in the beginning, but you just mentioned fixed operations. Bob Sr., I mentioned the mantra, "You will be satisfied." I remember he wrote in his book that we have to be here for the taker and not the maker. Yeah. And your organization was so far, Bob, ahead of its time in thinking 20, 30 years back, that we have to be open to satisfy the customer. So a little bit on the customer side, I know you do a great job in satisfying the customer on the sales side, but on the service side and fixed ops side, it's even more important than ever to be able to do that today, especially with what's been going on in the last 12 months throughout the world.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have to be there for the customer. I use the word, we want every honest dollar. I mean, at the end of the day, if we sell something to a customer that they don't need, that's a sin, okay? And it's not tolerated in our company. But if we don't sell them something that they do need, that's equally as bad. And, we partnered with BG, a company that we've worked with for many, many years. And we use their menu system in all of our stores. And it's so professional, it's so detailed that when we present to a customer what they actually need for service, it's tailored specific to their driving mileage, the vehicle that they own, the year, the mileage that's on it. And we measure it. We measure it at the end of the day, tires, brakes, batteries, alignments, BG sales, because we know what the metric should be. And it's easy for us to identify, advisors or stores that aren't achieving those metrics and ultimately hurting the customer. Because if we're not selling tires, brakes, batteries, and, key BG services, we're leaving the customer, exposed for potential problems. So, that's how we think, that's how we operate. and it resonates across all our stores.
It goes back to the consistency that you mentioned earlier, to be able to have that BG menu to present to every customer every time, sort of like we learned to do it back in F&I, some years ago. We're doing that now in service, and BG is helping, and you're leading the way in that.
It's crazy. We'll see customers come in with like literally scribble pads from whether it's another dealer or a independent, and this is what they said I needed, and you can't read it. And it's just not professional. When we hand the customer, a BG menu, it's just professional. It's professional. I feel as though the customer trusts it more. And the advisors, it helps, particularly entry-level advisors that don't have the experience that senior advisors have. It makes them look like professionals on day one, because they can, articulate exactly what the customer needs in a very professional manner with a few pushes of the button. So, that's just one example of a process. We obviously have several others as that process flows through the shop to the technician, back to the advisor. But I'm big on process. I'm an avid pilot. So, we don't get in airplanes unless you have a checklist, right? You have a checklist. No matter how many times you do it, you have a checklist. We have one on our race team. No matter how many times those guys bolt that car together, before that thing rolls out of the pit, it's a call out with a check. It's a call out with a check. And again, we bring a lot of that back into the dealership, because no matter how many times you do something, you want to confirm and verify that you're following the process. And at the end of the day, it works.
And Bob, it's so important to have that checklist, and that really, really resonates in the automobile business, because a lot of times we look past the fundamentals and the basics, which are so important in, like you just said, in racing and before you get in that plane. To be able to have that on the service drive as well, really, really critical.
Critical, absolutely critical to success.
Talk to me about training. How do you go about it on the fixed op side, to make sure that these processes are, internalized and actually utilized and sustained over time?
Well, we're pretty structured. Most of the training is in-house. The only outside training we bring in are the BG trainers, which have been fantastic in DeLaine. But we have a pretty regimented training weekly that the managers are responsible to hold with their advisors, key techs in the shop. Monthly, I do a 2.5, 3 hour deep dive meeting with the whole company, where we go through metrics and we do some cross training, best practices. I mean, we're very fortunate. We got 13 franchises, all over the country pretty much. And there's a lot of like cross pollination, sharing ideas, what one store is doing really well and another store may be struggling in. They can reach out and talk to a fellow manager. I run kind of a mini 20 group with our entire company every single month. And it's been very effective, because, there's always a store in the group that excels in one area and may be struggling in another area relative to another store. And, with 4 Ford stores and a mix of different franchises, it works very well. So I would say it's mostly in-house with some help with the BG team, utilizing the menu more effective. And I just go back to, it's not the training of the week or the month and you bring in a trainer and, you see him in 6 months. It's consistency. Every single month I hold my training. Every single week, the GM is involved with the service manager and the parts manager with a weekly training session with their advisors. And it's not a 3 hour session. It might be an hour session where they go through it, but it's consistency of doing it, week in and week out. I tell my service managers, I said, how often, I said, just go ask the sales manager. Just ask the sales manager how many weeks a month he doesn't have a sales meeting. They just decide not to have one. It never happens, right? We have weekly sales managers. I mean, we do it twice a week in our stores. But in service, it's like, yeah, well, we'll have one this week or not have one. That doesn't happen in our store. Every single week, the managers are holding some formal training. And every single month, I'm personally holding that meeting across the company. So we're very consistent on it.
I remember years ago, I believe it was not Bob Sr., but perhaps your father went on the circuit for Ford And I attended a session that he delivered a saying that sticks with me to this day. He said, success is a journey. It's not a destination. And that really resonated with me because they talked about all the best practices that Tasca initiates, not just like you said on the sales side, but you do it on the fixed ops side, and you do it consistency. You do it every day, every week, and you hold people accountable and you measure it. And I think that's so effective.
Oh, it is. You also coined the phrase "win on Sunday, sell on Monday." And it's a dream of mine to be able to carry that on with Ford. I was born and raised in a Ford store. If you cut me, I bleed Ford blue, and really proud to represent them nationally in that funny car. And it's really true. Winning on Sunday, selling on Monday, being around all these fans and Ford customers. It's truly an honor of mine to be able to represent Ford on a national level.
I've heard this year, many dealers have said that fixed operations has become the front of the house. When we went through some of the dark days of COVID early in 2020, and there was talk of essential businesses, there's more of a focus now on fixed operations and will continue to be going into the future. Do you believe that's true? And
I think what you said is so true. I mean, we all went through probably some of the darkest days, dear God, that we ever have to go through in our lives. And, clearly we weren't first responders and, helping people in the hospital. You have to take your hat off to all those dedicated professionals that did that. But we certainly, dealers across the country, all of us collectively played a big role in keeping cars on the road. I mean, someone told me a number, I think NADA, my friend, the Reichart's there, that more people got to the hospital in vehicles than ambulances. So you have to keep the cars on the road. And, when we were in those dark days, the techs that came to work each and every day, keeping the cars on the road, we kept America rolling. And it certainly brought the importance of fixed operations to the forefront, not just for us, because I always knew it was there, but for people that thanked us, thanks for being open. I needed to keep my car going. And, we play such a vital role in keeping America rolling.
And you mentioned BG products several times in our discussion. BG is also known for longevity. In fact, I think they're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. You do a lot with them. They're not just a vendor. They're more of a partner. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it is, and, we've been with BG for many years, been to the factory, just so impressed with the technology. I'm a tech guy, the technology behind the product. And, you can say, some people believe in it, some people don't. We believe in it. And we believe in it because they put their money where their mouth is. If the product is used and any component fails, it's up to a $4,000 warranty. And you have no idea when you hand a customer a check for a repair that could have cost them $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 and it's free. Okay, because they use the BG products. That goes to show you how much BG believes in their product and the value add. My grandfather always used to say, you want to sell anything? It's price and content.
Yes.
You increase the content at the same price, you sell more. You lower the price at the same content, you'll sell more. So, BG provides great value in their product with the warranties and the price points. And it's good for the customer. It's good for the dealership. And it's why we use it. And it's why they've been in business for 50 years.
And you're so focused in your organization on quality. I heard it said many years ago that Bob Sr. was the only person in the world who could actually make a phone call and stop the assembly line and, make sure that a vehicle was being quality checked because he was meticulous for that. And it's the same way at your dealership, even today, many years later.
It is. And, I'll just give Ford props. I take my hat off to Ford because my grandfather did it back in the 70s. And just a month ago, they flew a couple of key dealers out to the Bronco plant. And they say the Bronco F-150 plant. They say, okay, guys, what do you think? What do you think of the quality, the fit and finish? So it just shows you how progressive Ford was and is in keeping key people involved to keep them in check, to say, listen, we need help here. This isn't right. My grandfather did it back in the 70s. I'm doing it still today with Ford because it is all about quality. And quality, is job one then, it's job one now, both at a manufacturer's level and at the dealership, because we have to do the job as well.
Tasca literally wrote the book on customer satisfaction and quality. And I tell you, I'm really in awe of the fact that you keep everybody in check in your dealership all the way down. We're talking about the service writers, the technicians, everybody's focused.
We tried, Ted. We try to keep them in check.
No, you do. No.
Than others, but we'll never stop trying. I can tell you that much.
I'll tell you a quick story. I know that you do a great job. Maybe 12 years ago, 2008, 2009, I was training for Ford Customer Service Division in the Boston region. And part of that training, we trained a lot of the field reps for Ford. And of course, a lot of those folks just came out of college and now they're going to work for the manufacturer, for the OEM. And there was a young lady who approached me during one of the breaks in the workshop. And she introduced herself. She said, "Mr. Ings, I'm the rep for Tasca Ford." I believe it was Tasca or Lincoln at that time, Lincoln Mercury. And she said, "I'm in the dealership all the time and I see Mr. Tasca Sr. in the store and I don't know how to approach him. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to break the ice." And so I said to her, "Well, why don't you ask Mr. Tasca about his book?"
Yeah.
And she said, "What book?" And so at which I ordered the book for her and had it sent to her. And subsequently, the regional manager had it sent to all the reps, because You Will Be Satisfied, written by Bob Tasca, I'm going to guess circa 1995, 1996.
Yeah.
Really, really started the ball rolling on satisfying the customer and all the things that you do still to this day.
He had quick service back in the 60s, and way ahead of his time. I tell you, Gene, I like that shirt, that Ford Oval on it. If I would have known you were going to wear that, I would have worn my racing shirt. I'm getting the itch now. I may have to see if we can pull up the test session a little sooner. But I love the Rev It Up theme. I love looking at those grandstands with fans in it. As passionate as I am in the dealership, I just absolutely love being out there racing with all the Ford fans and competing. But this has been great, Ted.
Hey, Bob Tasca, thank you so much. Great honor to have you here. Everyone, Bob Tasca at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And Ted, we're having such a fun time here. I just don't want it to stop. So make sure you stick around to rev it up at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Your new car's appearance is under attack daily, from forces inside and out. We can't prevent every little accident, but there is a way to ensure passing mishaps don't leave permanent marks. By protecting your vehicle's interior and exterior with the full suite of PermaPlate appearance protection products, FiberGuard, Paint Guard, and Leather Guard, as well as dent and windshield protection. Each one is backed by a best-in-class coverage that keeps your car looking new at no cost to you. PermaPlate, protection for what moves you.
Well, folks, we are so grateful that you have joined us these 3 days and taken up the challenge for Dealers versus Cancer, along with Ted and our guest, Len Belavia of DealerLaw.com. Len, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Ted.
Gene and Len, these last 3 days have just flown by, and we want to thank everybody for their generosity. And, Jay Leno's coming up here in just a few moments, and Jay's going to be supporting our cause of Dealers versus Cancer. In fact, Len, that was probably one of the most critical things to having him come on the show today and be a part of this event, that he could be part of this charitable cause. So, Len, on behalf of the Fixed Ops Roundtable, we want to thank you for bringing the community together and really rallying the cause for the troops to support Dealers versus Cancer.
Well, thank you, guys. I really appreciate what you're doing for the Prostate Cancer Foundation. I am thrilled. This is not a path that I chose, but since I wound up here, and even though I turned some bad news into good news, and now I can't believe that I'm joining forces, or Jay Leno, who I've been a great fan with my entire life, the idea that he's helping you and me and the entire industry and the Prostate Cancer Foundation is absolutely the pinnacle of my career. So this is really something I consider to be entirely worthwhile. We're an industry that I consider to be the most generous in the entire world. So it's amazing to have this team, meaning you, Ted, Eugene, Jay Leno, the Prostate Cancer Foundation, and a very generous automotive industry. I'm thrilled with this.
No, we're honored, Len. Everyone, we're putting up a QR code on the screen. If you would take your mobile device and you can open the camera and go ahead and scan that QR code, it'll take you directly to a page where you can make a donation right now and support Dealers versus Cancer, the Prostate Cancer Foundation. Support this worthy cause. Be part of our $50,000 challenge here today. Jay Leno is coming up in just a few moments. And again, thank to the audience. Thank you so much to our sponsors, our attendees, everybody supporting this great event, and for Len for helping to put this on the radar screen. And again, at such a critical time for our audience. So Len, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks, Gene. Thanks, Jay Leno. And thanks to the entire industry. Much appreciated.
Signs. They tell you the road, the places you're going, the promise that awaits. No matter where you go, when you see this sign, it means I take my car here and it runs better and lasts longer, guaranteed. It's a bold statement, but it's one that BG has proven over and over for almost 50 years. It all started when the founders of BG Products in Wichita, Kansas, were looking for a breakthrough. They developed the first BG formula. Skeptics said it wouldn't work. Anyone who tried it knew that it did. Pour it in, and engine performance and life improved. Just like that. But BG wasn't about to be contained to a can. What started in the engine spread to every working part of every kind of vehicle and to every part of the world. Because all BG products and services have one ingredient in common: innovation. Through cutting-edge research and development, state-of-the-art resources, and an unwavering commitment to quality, BG leads the way with proven solutions for real-world drivability problems. That's why, worldwide, professionals use BG products, services, tools, and equipment every day. And why, every year, professionals from around the world attend BG University, the most advanced client success program in the industry. And why everything BG does is proven to deliver customer satisfaction and retention. Today, customers don't just look for a shop, they look for a BG shop. What can take a product from the heart of America into the hearts and minds of car owners all over the world? This sign and what it means. Now, ask what BG means to you. Because BG works worldwide.